This is Financial Standard, the definitive source of news, thought leadership and analysis for Australian wealth management professionals. Financial Standard. Take the lead.
Welcome to the Financial Standard podcast. I'm Financial Standard journalist Andrew McKean with JB Weir Chief Executive Maria Likouris, speaking now about how high net worth women access financial advice and what they can do to build strong relationships with their advisor. Welcome, Maria.
Great. Hi. Thanks so much for having me.
Look, just to kick things off here, can you discuss some of the general barriers women face when trying to engage with financial advisors and explain whether high net worth women encounter similar or different issues?
Yeah, unfortunately, although high net worth women engage heavily with financial services, they've got a high level of capability and financial literacy, and they've got high value portfolios. They still report a number of barriers when it comes to receiving financial advice. We interviewed through our study a number of women, as well as got a whole bunch of data around the industry over the last several years to help support our findings. And pretty much high net worth women have said that they feel frustrated, that they feel that there are unnecessary obstacles that get in their way, and increased scrutiny. They feel like they're treated differently to men. They feel they've been patronized, sometimes not listened to, and pushed out of the conversation. And ultimately, what this means is that they don't get the same opportunities. And when it comes to investments, in particular, they say they've had difficulties in accessing non-traditional asset classes. And oftentimes, they're actually told to kind of de-risk their portfolios rather than take risk in their portfolios. And women and men actually have similar risk appetites, particularly when it comes to the high net worth space. So as females out there, we feel that we've got the ability to manage our own financial affairs, and we love great opportunities. But unfortunately, some of the unconscious biases that exist have led to women not being able to access the type of financial services they want. And ultimately, that then has led to a bit of a lack of trust between women and these financial service providers. And in many cases, that results in women taking their own financial affairs into their own hands. But there is a little bit of good news when it comes to these barriers and these unconscious biases. And that's the fact that some of our clients that we interviewed said that actually they feel like they're seeing a generational shift. And that from the younger advisors out there in the market, in particular from female advisors, that they're seeing less bias than what they've seen in the past.
What do you believe is perhaps some of the root causes of these obstacles that high net worths are reporting? You were talking about unconscious biases. Would you see this as being a combination of an institutional or a societal problem?
Yeah, I think it's a bit, the financial services and wealth management market's been around a long time, but, it was historically started by men. Most clients were men, and most advisors were men and still are men. And, as a result of kind of that historical way of looking at the roles of men and women, and as time has passed, there's still this bias out there to leaning in towards the male in the relationship when it comes to financial advice. But as women are growing and increasing their wealth and taking more control of their financial affairs, they want to be engaged in that process a lot more. But due to the past, I think what's happened is women have somewhat disengaged. And so what you see, particularly more with our baby boomers, is that a lot of them are in a situation where they don't have trusted financial relationships. And then when they are widowed or divorced or other circumstances that are coming up, they aren't in a position to really take that ownership because they haven't been engaged and they don't have trusted relationships. So the paper is a bit of a call out, particularly to those baby movers to start getting more involved, but to the broader industry to start thinking about how it starts to change in the way that it engages, because the clients of the future are not the same as the clients of today. And as financial planning firms evolve and start to tailor the way that they work with women, as compared to how they've historically worked with men or in couples, I think women will feel more engaged and it'll be a safer space for them to take more control.
So before you were speaking about, they feel frustrated by, unnecessary obstacles,
Yeah.
institutional representatives assuming they have
Yeah.
little to no kind of understanding of their finances. You've spoken about how kind of the younger generation of advisors seem to be doing a better job in not, engaging in those sorts of behaviours. But in your experience, how often do high net worth women kind of encounter this increased scrutiny? I mean, is this completely across the board, or is it something that is being fixed or addressed probably, from younger advisors versus kind of older advisors?
Yeah. There's a lot of great financial advisors out there that are really good engaging with male and female clients. So I don't think it's 100% across the board or anything like that. But enough of the women that we interviewed all called out this same issue in some aspect. And at some point in their last, 10 to 20 years where they've sought financial advice. And when I started sharing this paper in a number of boardroom lunches or events with clients, I had a number of my clients come and tell me stories of the past where they've had that experience with other financial advisors that they've worked with. I think a big call out in the paper is that what women are looking for is slightly different, and they're looking for individuals that have empathy and the ability to show empathy and understanding of what they need. And I think that that's a skill or a quality that more and more people are engaging in and understanding. And I think for younger people, that's a stronger capability and quality that they have. But I think there's people of all ages that can work with women and do work with women really well. But I think as an industry, that's not something that we've leaned into as heavily as we need to really support women.
Another element that you've cited is through this podcast, even is the importance of trust.
Yeah.
In choosing an advisor, and I guess a trust that they'll be, enduring to those values, like empathy. So, why do you think that element of trust is so important, and how can advisors practically go about in a way that they fostered this trust?
So women absolutely have said that they're looking for an advisor that they trust. And when they say that, they're looking for someone that understands them, someone who's taken the time to get to know them as a person, to understand their needs, their life stages, their family composition, their risk appetite, their history and experience that have shaped the way that they think about financial decisions. So when someone takes the time to get to know them, it's personable, it's customized to the way that they think, then it can have a huge, profound effect on women, and you can start to build trust. Now, a lot of women has said that naturally they may really want another female to be their financial advisor, and that's because they figure that they'll probably know them better and understand their particular circumstance. So absolutely, women are looking for someone who's going to spend the time to work with them and to customize their recommendations to them. But they're looking for someone who brings to them a different communication style in the way that women like to communicate and learn. So they're looking for someone who's patient, who uses plain language, who's detail oriented, and whose language is empowering towards women. So if you can start to connect with women in that way and communicate with women in a way that they like to be communicated with, then you can very easily build a great trusted relationship with them. And the other thing about women that I think is important for everyone to understand is that if you can build trust, they will be a really strong advocate for you. So they will definitely tell all their friends and family, and they will be an incredible referral source for any financial advisor who can build that trusted relationship with them.
I'm sure you've just touched on some of those points just then, but you've cited to me before, there's several critical junctures that these high net worth women have indicated that are kind of key to a successful advice relationship. Could you dig into those?
So I guess what you can see from the paper is a lot of women go see a financial advisor when they need it. So all of the papers are call out to women to go get their financial affairs in order earlier. What we find from talking to women, and again, particularly in that baby boomer stage, is that they only go seek advice when they actually need it. And I think I mentioned earlier, we've had women who, have gotten divorced, or are widowed. And, there's some really good stats in the paper around the fact that, women do live longer than men, as we know. And so there's a lot more women in older ages that need financial advice. And when we look at divorces, we know in the next year, there's going to be 10,000 divorces that occur in the high net worth space. And so there's a lot of women out there that are going to need financial advice. So you're getting women at a very critical point when they're actually feeling quite vulnerable in the situation that they're in. And they may not have a full understanding of their financial affairs, particularly if the male in the relationship has been managing it for a long time. So that is a point where a woman needs someone who they're going to really be able to trust, and someone who spends time, as I said, getting to know them, their situation, in some ways maybe educating them on what they need to be across, and supporting them in an empathetic way so that they can take control, manage their affairs, get things in order, feel comfortable, feel safe. I think that's a really important thing. Women want to feel safe in the relationships that they're in, and they need someone to help them through those times. So by spending time, being patient, supporting them, working with them, these women can get a better understanding and a tailored investment portfolio and advice that meets their needs.
Through the research that that you've uncovered, when you show this research, to industry participants, is this something that's received, quite positive feedback? Are you seeing actionable actions being taken as a result of what people have been shown?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I was a little bit overwhelmed by the take up of this paper when I first put it out there. I mean, I think it came out at a really opportune time, and it's a paper that supports and is positive about the growth of women and their wealth. But we ended up getting a lot of exposure to the papers. But on LinkedIn, the number of my peers out there in the market that started resharing the paper was extraordinary, and we've seen it replayed. I've also spoken to a number of senior executive women out there in the industry as I, see them at industry events. And I had some women say to me that they had received the paper from 3, 4, 5 separate other females that they knew that wanted to share the paper with them. I've also done a number of events, as I said. One of them in particular was a mother and daughter event, and it was linked with fashion. And it was the mother wrote to me to tell me that it was the first time her daughter had ever fully engaged in finances in the family. So we think that this paper can have significant impacts on the industry, on families, on women in general, and hopefully on the next generation, which is really, really important. But I've also been engaging with my industry counterparts. We're doing some work with the Stockbrokers and Investment Advisors Association. Some of my peers and I have come together to try to drive a piece of work to get more women hopefully into financial services. I'm also doing some other work with some other industry counterparts as well. So I do expect that this is the start of a lot more that you're going to hear in this space. And here at JB Ware and in the broader NAB Private Wealth, we've got a 3-pillar strategy on how we're going to take this paper forward. One is on engagement and advocacy. The second is on education, because I think that will be critical. And the third is actually on how we support women in the community. So I think it could have very broad reaching impacts, and it's just the start of something.
Just maybe one final point, perhaps, then, in terms of education, what would that entail?
So there's a few parts to that. One is actually educating all of our relationship managers and our advisors on how to engage with women in the best way, both looking at it from the behavioral biases that may be out there and being more self-aware of that, and then also about thinking about how you engage with women throughout the financial planning process. And secondly, it's about also supporting the education of our women that are out there in the market on different aspects of financial affairs. And then, as I mentioned, their children as well, and bringing like-minded women together, hopefully into cohorts, to provide them a safe space so they can ask the types of questions that they need to know to get a better understanding.
And just finally, are you encouraged of the progress that you're currently seeing? I mean, do you have any sort of milestones or kind of ideas of where you would like the industry to be at?
Yeah, I haven't formed that up yet. That's one of the things that I'm working on at the moment. But yeah, I'll be working with some of those industry associations on how we could put some clear kind of milestones out there and see whether there's any metrics that we can monitor over time to see how we progress with the outcomes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Maria.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to chat. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this Financial Standard podcast. For more information, visit financialstandard.com.au. Please keep in mind that the information discussed in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider personal circumstances. Reliance should not be placed on any content without further independent financial research and advice.